Dubai and Bahrain could have potentially become parts of one day India or Pakistan. Now, this didn't happen, but why was this the case? Well, the main reason is the whole Arabian Peninsula, such as Dubai, Bahrain, UAE, one day Yemen, Oman, was a part of the British Indian Empire. The reason why this is pretty unknown is because the states on the Arabian Peninsula weren't on a map of the British Raj, and this is because the British didn't want to annoy the Ottomans. However, these states were treated like a part of India. They used the Indian rupee, and they were treated like princely states and had gun salutes. For example, Dubai during the period of the 1920s and beforehand was fairly insignificant, and they had a zero gun salute when you compare to something like Hyderabad, which had a 21 gun salute. Britain only actually controlled around one third of India directly, and the rest were under the control of princely states, and this meant that the British controlled their defence and foreign policy. There's a really interesting story when a Yemenese Jewish woman applies to go to the Mandate of Palestine. However, she needs a passport, and she actually is issued an Indian passport to get there. What's really interesting is people from the Arabian Peninsula would go over to places like Bombay, Calcutta, and work as cleaners and just work as housekeeping and do labour jobs and jobs people didn't really want to do. However, today it's the complete opposite. People from Pakistan and India go over to the UAE, work as cleaners, work in construction. So the roles have sort of reversed. And what's interesting is that some people from the Arabian Peninsula, such as Oman, Yemen, Kuwait, UAE, Bahrain, sometimes saw themselves as Indian. However, this idea sort of started to change into the 1920s and 1930s. However, Urdu was even spoken in Oman as well. However, when Indian independence looked more and more likely, we start getting these places being taken off the administration of the British Raj. For example, Yemen breaks off from British India, and then in 1947, of course, Bahrain and the modern day UAE also break off from India just before India's independence. But a big issue with this, well, not issue, but the main thing around this was firstly, the British did this because they thought if they have to let India go, they can keep their colonies in the Arabian Peninsula. But also, India and Pakistan didn't really want these nations as well because they didn't really see themselves as Indian. They didn't see the Arabian Peninsula as Indian, and they weren't culturally the same, and that was a big reason. And also money. At the time, Dubai, not much oil had been found, and it wasn't very rich. It was just a backwater, and people just didn't want to pay for the upkeep of these places.